There we are. We are live. We are just the two of us. It is literally the Bill and Ammons Bogus Hangout at the moment. I'm sure some other people will be diving in a little while, and I will put the link in the event pretty quick. But in the meantime, this is a kind of rare opportunity for us to actually just have a little chat, just the two of us. So, Bill, without anyone else having to jump in, what have you been up to this week?
Well, I'm in the midst of a meetup, which culminates in people actually meeting, getting together tomorrow, but also involved in the meetup group going to a reception and exhibit hall tonight. It was, we were invited as guests, conference presenter to come to the conference. It's Data Weekly or Enterprise Data World, which tends to be a little bit more oriented and marketer oriented. But so we're looking at financial industry strategies and schema extension for industries that has been developed.
So kind of, if it's in the financial industry, is it a get-rich-quick schema?
No. More
You should invent one. I must admit, I've of course got to meet up myself this week because it's Brighton SEO Week, the biggest free conference in the UK. And tickets sold out very, very quickly again, or rather, were given away, the free ones, literally within 10 minutes.
Kevin told me I've got an invitation to come over, and which I should probably do.
You definitely should. I think there's quite a few international people that come for it now. I know Janita from SEO Moz was there a couple of years ago. I think I heard that Gianluca is there this year, and of course several of our regular crowd that turn up with us are going to be there. Tony Dimmock, Darren is there. Fab is going to be there. Omi Sado. So yeah, it should be a really. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm only going for the after drinks kind of thing, but yeah, I've been talked into lunch now as well.
It's been getting tremendous reviews the last few years.
It's not your standard. There's none of the active sales pitches that some of the events tend to get into. It tends to be grassroots stuff, all actionable, without too much, brand promotion of the speakers, which I always like. I always think, look, if the presentation is good, then the branding will take care of itself. People will be talking about you, and if they can't find what company you're at by searching for you, that's your skill as an SEO that's a problem. You don't need to have massive sales pitches attached to your presentations. I think some of the conferences, of course, because there's so much money involved in some of them, I think it gives people a mercurial mindset. If you're going to pay the money for a stall at SES, SMX, which costs a lot of money, then you want to get your money's worth, and you kind of maybe over promote when you shouldn't.
Give a presentation at one of those. I tried to promotional parts of my presentation down to a minimum, if not even a slide with my company's name some social profiles I can be found at, and the words "thank you." Not much more than that.
Yeah,
It's not why people
I've seen some presentations where literally a third of every slide seems to be branding for the company. You know, it's like a lower third on every slide or an upper third on every slide. And it's not necessary. It's not good. You know, it's just.
It's not what I've. Yeah, it's not what I've gone to a conference for.
Exactly. And it led to several of these sort of revolutions against conference business as usual, including, you know, PubCon. When that first started, it was, well, look, the speaker pitches are always a little bit too commercial and a little bit what we all know. The best parts are the bar conversation, so let's just have a whole day of bar conversation with no actual presentation. Sadly, and I do say sadly, the PubCon idea got turned into a regular conference. But I actually think it was better without the presentations. I know some people asked for the presentations, but it's one of those things. There's people asking for me to blog. I write when I've got something to say, not because I haven't written a post this week. And I think likewise, the conference where people just, you know, hook up with who they want to hook up with and have actual conversations are just a lot more valuable than presentations.
One of the best I've ever attended at a conference was a lunch session. We had a conversation about the differences we perceived in our country, how Google operates, what we each don't get, what we see or don't see. You know, how is local in Europe, in the U.S., in Australia. It was fun.
Yeah. I tend to like the well, you know, as this show proves, we both enjoy the genuine conversation over the polished presentations. Hey, Darren.
How you doing, right?
Yeah, doing well. How are you?
Good. Very good. Sorry I'm late. I had some errands.
CEO's got you busy, has she?
Yeah. So I'm errand boy tonight. Hi, Bill.
Hello.
Say again.
So, Darren, I know you were doing a lot of sort of breakfast networking and have recently stopped that.
Yeah.
What was the change there? Was it partly? I've always found these things don't drive business. They can drive interest, but they don't drive business. Was it that, or
a bit of both. I think it was the dynamics of the group that I was in, and Helen is also in a breakfast group that does very well, and she has a really good relationship with the web designer in the group. I didn't have a good relationship with the web designer in mine, and the branding guy and the copywriting guy, and they all thought they knew SEO better than me. So I was never pulled in for any work. So after 10 years, I did get some work out of it. If I worked it out over 10 years, it generated probably 25,000 a year, just directly from the group, but also then it generated probably another 25,000 a year from referrals. But again, it just, there was too many people trying to do SEO in my group, whereas in Helen's group, it's more defined who does what, so it works really well. But my group wasn't great. So yeah, I've got fed up of getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. It hurts. Yeah, it really hurts. So I do a lunchtime one, and I've gone back to building websites, but very just simple ones for small businesses. I'm too much of a layman to go off into corporate land, as I've probably said, Ammon, before. Helen's very good at it, and she's good at getting jobs with corporates. I'm not so much. I tend to talk things down rather than talk things up, and probably devalue myself a bit. So yeah, so I've stopped, but we haven't stopped altogether. But we do pick up most of our business. I don't know if that's the same for you, Ammon and Bill. Word of mouth? Recommendation?
Word of mouth is huge. General reputation, I'd say. But
we get a lot of referrals from.
Okay.
I sometimes don't know exactly where mine come from. It tends to be people come to me and say, I've been reading your stuff for years. I've known about you for years. I mean, literally, some of the ones that come to me, you know, they've been reading my stuff for 15 years.
Oh, great. Okay.
It's like they were always waiting for a juicy enough project to bring to me. You know?
Yeah.
There does sometimes seem to be an aspirational nature to some of my clients that they kind of work up to hiring me.
That's a good thing, you know. Make them work a bit, yeah. But also we do again presentations to groups of companies, whether that's breakfast or lunchtime. Again, Helen does it, and she does more strategic, high level rather than the techniques that SEOs use. Because most small businesses, they don't really, not saying everyone, but a lot of them are just say, look, we're paying you to take care of it, you take care of it. So they just want to know the top level view, and Helen, with her background in marketing for a bank at high level, is very good at that. So we won a new customer recently from Canada, of all places, but they've got offices just west of London. But Helen's Skype with them, and then she just feeds out the work to the rest of the team, and we do as we're told.
Yeah.
Much change at home, really. So yeah, so that works well. But what I am finding, people that have never done SEO, that have been in business for 10 years, they're not going to probably start now.
To an extent, yeah. I mean, there's always the first-time business owners who then think, okay, you know I've got to do this. And there's always a lot of those. And I think that at the lower end of the market, you know, there was always going to be those, and they are the bread and butter of a lot of people. That's not my market, and it never has been. Not because I won't deal with it, but simply because they're usually after somebody a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
They haven't learned to value SEO yet, and
they never will.
I wouldn't say that. I've met some people who are prepared to spend money, but they'll work their way up the chain. You know, they'll start with the local SEO who's cheap, and then they'll go with the local SEO who's got the best reputation, and then they'll go with an agency, and then, you know, if they still feel there's more to go, they move up. They're not afraid of spending money. It's just they also don't want to jump into throwing money at a thing if they haven't tested out what's possible for a lesser budget. You know, they're spending smart, and I don't have any problem with clients doing that.
Yeah.
I always say that, you know, a client probably needs to have been around the block a couple of times before they're right for me, and before I'm right for them.
Yeah. How do you find that, Bill?
I think you may have just had a text there.
Okay. How do you find that, Bill?
I'm sorry.
I think he wants the question again.
I was.
No worries.
Yes.
Do you find that when you pick up clients, they've aspirationally sort of, you know, they've had aspirations to work with you, or, and as Ammon was saying, that, or, you know, some clients go around the block twice before they work with Ammon. Do you find that, or do you find that you get inquiries from lots of startups? Or I mean, I'll work with a startup, but they've got to have investment. They've got to have a financial backer and a proper plan. But how do you find that, Bill, in your side of the pond?
we can mix. I draw some people in, people who work with me, and they send me emails, and I tend to forward those to the people I work with in Virginia to let them work out deals with potential clients. So I've had a few people, Bill, I've wanted to work with you forever. And I'm getting in touch, and we see if we can do something together.
Okay.
You know, we do have other people who do things like lunch and learn seminars at or some speaking engagements. I am a code minister, and that can sometimes get us in front of a lot of people.
Okay.
I spoke last year at one meetup with a couple other meetup groups, and we had 148. And I heard from a bunch of people after that happened.
Great. Yeah.
So
I must admit, that kind of stuff I've done. I did a tour one time with the kind of local business advisory centres, the Business Link people and things like that, and toured around the region and gave a whole load of breakfast seminars. And although everyone was interested and everyone, you know, we got fantastic feedback on what people had learned, didn't drive any business whatsoever at the end of the day. Well, not for us. It might have done for, you know, lower price companies. But it was, I had this weird thing said once in the forums that sometimes listening to me actually makes me seem like this distant expert instead of sometimes, you know, I explain things in such a level that they feel like I am a professor when they only need, you know.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I know an SEO in Wiltshire that goes to a lunchtime networking group, and he talks. You know, he could be a search engineer. You know, he works for a search engine, and people just sit there scratching their heads because he's talking about canonicalization and, you know, all that kind of stuff, and they just don't get it, and you try to say to them it's not rocket science. But an example in point, I booked a table at Carluccio's in Brighton, and the lady on the phone said, "Oh, there's another group coming from the Dome, on Friday. Is it something to do with IT?" And I said, "Oh, it's SEO." She said, "Yeah, the other guy tried to explain it to me and he couldn't. I got really confused." And I said, "All we do is get your website found on Google, and people make more people come to your website." "Oh, that's what you do, is it?" is what she said. But he'd obviously gone into metadata and all of that, and she didn't have a clue. So, yeah, it's quite interesting. And I suppose I come in with that level of, we do aim for the lower level market. It's still profitable, but we're very careful as to how much we provide, and we've still generated some fantastic results for small companies. But very few, a couple have gone on to invest more with us. And I'm not saying loads, but most then try to put you in that shoebox of, well, you're making me lots of money and I'll keep you there. But as long as they don't ask for more than they're paying, then I'm always happy to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to work with the bigger companies, and we've done some. You know, we've done work with the National Health System. I can see why it's bankrupting this country when we walk in and there's 40 people on committee to choose us for SEO for a part of the NHS, and I'm going, we don't need one person to make a decision here, maybe two. But yeah, there is this sort of, I think there is a lot of bread and butter SEO work that can be done for smaller companies that's profitable and successful. Still hard work, but it's enjoyable because I deal directly with a lot of the business directors and they become friends. So it's a nice company to have, and we've just taken on our 7th person We've agreed. He's agreed last Friday. So slow growth. I don't want to be the biggest, but I'd like to be the best. One of the best SEOs serving the SEO, serving smaller businesses SEO, but also other facets of web marketing as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I like.
I'm never going to put it this way. I'm never going to drive around in a Porsche or a Range Rover.
I like some of the small clients because you're making such a big difference to their company.
Yeah.
However, I love the bigger clients because you've got such a more broad and rich set of resources to work with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, it's a bit like the difference between street art and fine art. You know, one person has the time and budget to sit there on the street as they're passing for 15 minutes and get a sketch or portrait done. Another person is prepared to sit for months and get a piece of fine art, and that's kind of sometimes the difference.
Yeah. Oh, I do agree with you. Yeah. Working with a bigger company with a bigger set of resources where £1,000 is a drop in the ocean, you know, and it's far easier than trying. You know, someone says, "Well, I've got an extra." You know, I had a client last week, and I'm not sure if it was a game she was playing, but she woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning saying she was anxious that we were going to charge her an extra £65. I mean, that's the worst case scenario I've had in 15 years, and I thought that's why I don't really want to go back to these really small businesses. I did it as a favour for another client who's been a long-term client for 12 years, every single month, and they rank in the HR world, and they rank very well against Peninsula and Ceridian. And we looked after, you know, one of those contacts, but it's just too small. And I've done the job, but I've said I can't support you going forward at that rate. You know, so.
And that's always the thing. If you want to help businesses and small businesses, the only way to do that is to help your own business be viable and successful, and then you can you know, afford to do free seminars for businesses that can't afford any decent SEO. You know, focus on
to do those anyway.
Focus on being a successful business and then do charity rather than try to do charity as a business. And I think that's where a lot of people first coming into any market, whether it's social media marketing or any other form of marketing, web design, I think a lot of people think that the small clients are going to be easier. They're not. They're not at all. The big clients are easier.
And sometimes bigger clients aren't taking advantage that exists in front of them.
Exactly.
I remember the limousine company that company worked with last year that won the Landy's Award. They did well providing corporate shuttles to clients and doing as many limousine runs as they could be. They weren't selling limousine rides as much to people. We worked with them to help it and create a demand for more actual customized packages, and it made a difference.
Yeah.
Their business, that type of business, the corporate shuttles continued to do well, but the personal limo rides just went up 57% a year, which was really good.
Yeah,
it's one of the first things I want to know with a client is, look, you know, it's fine. You know, your website, I can help myself to looking at that, and sure, I can look through your AdWords, or I can look at your analytics, but I'm only going to see the reports you've already set up.
Yeah.
It's going to be a while before setting up new ones is reporting any data worthwhile. What I really want to know right now is, where's your biggest profit margin? And I don't mean the one that's actually working right now, but what product has the biggest profit margin? What percentage of your business is that? And could we increase that dramatically? And it's so often the thing that, because, you know, oh, well, that's the hard sell, they kind of haven't done much to market it. I think it's the same thing I was just saying. You know, a lot of people focus on the small business because they think it's the easiest out, because it's less money. But the trouble is, it's not less money to a solo owner when that's a proportion of their budget,
Yep.
a significant proportion. Whereas compared to the big company, you know, who 50,000 is nothing. You know, their budget for the year for marketing is 2 million. And a lot of that is going to go on TV and radio and print. You know, the SEO budget isn't going to be nowhere near that. But their IT department costs more than that per 6 months. You know.
Well, we've got a client. His server room is cost well over £1 million.
Yeah.
But when it came to SEO, he really quibbled every penny.
They can. Let's face it.
And they turn over 38 million.
In honesty, a server room for $1 million is actually quite a small, cheap server room.
Yeah, right, okay.
One server is £1 million. One web grade server is £1 million. By the time you've paid for the licenses for the software on the server.
Yeah.
Because if you want, you know, an Oracle database and you know, a couple of other systems, yeah, there's your $1 million gone. The machine and a couple of software licenses take the lot. It's one reason that open source has, you know, really taken off, and a lot of people will be using Apache and so on and so forth. It's so much cheaper. But even then, oh, well, there you go. You've saved half your money. You can now have 2 servers for £1 million, and then pay for the room for them to go in. Servers are expensive. You know, I think the problem with, you know, small clients is, yeah, that it's more personal to them. They often, you know, you are playing with their baby, whereas when you're with a corporation, of course, it's a group product, and they understand the website as a product instead of as a prodigy.
Yeah, okay, yeah, good point, Ammon. Yeah.
And I think that makes a huge difference to being able to make logical arguments for what happens, as opposed to having to appeal to personal. The small business is the one where, you know, they sometimes have some very illogical attitudes to how they want to be presented, which is about personal taste. That's why they've gone off and opened their own business rather than the business case. Well, you know, I understand that you want to be the company that, you know, has a green logo because you really like green. But have you thought of the psychological effects? You know, when you're a meat seller, you know, there are things that sometimes you need to say to people that when it's a corporate thing, you can argue data. And when it's a personal project, or when they feel it's a personal project, you much more have to get them emotionally on board as well as have the data. And the data will be ignored if it goes against their personal beliefs.
Yep. Oh, we get that. Yeah, we do have that. I've had one. The client has a new website coming on, and I had to explain to the MD, it's not about you. Yeah, but I know my customers. No, you don't. You're the MD. You've got a sales team downstairs of 15 people with 2 sales managers. They know your clients. They're the ones that they're selling to. And I go down. My big thing working with clients is go and sit in their sales with their sales teams and listen to the language and write down the words that they're saying, and that creates relevant phrases. We go back and pop into copy and think about ideas around marketing. But the 2 directors, they're not distantly, they're not really removed, but they are much more removed than their staff, and they've got personally involved in this website. And I said, that's not your remit. You know, oh, it's got to satisfy me. No, it's got to satisfy your customer base. So, and they look at you like you're talking another language.
Yeah. Certainly do see that. Dawn can't jump in with us today because, you know, she's trying to catch up on her homework, I think, because she's been doing a course. But she said she's keen to hear about your post on satisfaction as a potential search factor, the sort of facial recognition idea. We kind of discussed this very briefly on Search Geeks, didn't we? But
yeah.
What's this?
Go and explain it, Bill.
Okay, so Google, they could take your phone and use the rear-facing camera from your facial images of you, and smiling or frowning when you're looking at search results. And that type of thing might build a machine learning model based on using people looking at the same results. Maybe human evaluators, raters. Might help them boost or demote some things.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a fascinating idea, and I understand them patenting it. They will never use it.
It's a bit creepy.
No, it's not even that. There are
It's
things that are rivetingly good that make you frown because you have to concentrate hard.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I'm always scaling.
There are programs you don't like that you will laugh at, and there are programs you love that you will frown at.
Yeah.
If that can happen on TV, then it can certainly happen in reading. I know that there's books where, there've been brilliant books, and there's parts that, will have me frowning and concentrating, and there's parts that will have me smiling, and perhaps the best bits are the bits that have me frowning. That's when you're thinking.
Yep.
Right, and some things that you search for may be emotionally charged that have nothing to do with that individual result. And if you're searching for a funeral parlor.
Yeah, you don't really
search
want to
them. Different, I think.
But could they? You say if they're monitoring literally eyeballs on their results.
Faces.
Yeah, but got me thinking: could they use that to measure hotspots in the result? I know they know that the top results get it, but if they used it, they could say, well, this second snippet in the results in the SERPs, people seem to be spending another 2 seconds reading. Are they reading it fully and then clicking on it? The first one, are they scanning over it because it might be first, but it's not relevant? So rather than the emotion, maybe just a time viewed on. Could they pick that up?
Well, this is the part that I think is the real reason that this will be interesting, and one of the reasons they'll have patented it. And although they're talking about facial recognition, the obvious point is it allows them to do eye tracking in real time on all things. However, just because they can doesn't mean they have the resources to, or that they will. There's been a lot of patents on a lot of things that in the end aren't justifiably valuable enough for the resources they cost, such as optical character recognition on all images in Google search. Yes, it can be done. It could be done 10 years ago. But the sheer volume, I mean, Facebook alone gets 300 million images uploaded per day. Just Facebook.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Now, running OCR on all of those would put a strain on most systems. All right, Google's big enough to handle it. But Google's already doing a lot of processing of a lot of things. This isn't their only task.
Mm.
And then, right, now add in every other social network. Now add in all the blog posts. And suddenly this becomes, oh, right, yeah, okay, this is going to take a significant amount of resources. And is it worthwhile? Is the end result going to be that much better? No.
Okay. One thing that's reared its head this week for me is, if I may ask the question without going off too much of a tangent, but it is on SGO.
Tangents are our business. We love tangents.
Right. Okay. We use Google Search Console. Yeah, get that. We get 404s. I get soft 404s, 301s. But I've kind of got myself into a tizzy over. I read somewhere online, because the majority of our client sites, they're not millions of pages. We don't redirect millions of pages. So when I see a 404, I just let it I just let it say to the client. I've always said to the client, if you can't redirect it to another page because there's nothing there, don't redirect it just for redirect's sake. But then they go, well, say they say, well, I've got 2,000 hard 404s. My argument is, we'll let them shove off out the index. Question is, how long does it take for them to disappear? But then I'm told, or then I read as well, oh, well, you're wasting crawl budget, which is something that I don't, I'll be honest, I understand the concept of, but I've never utilised because
If
I
there
quite
are,
quite well.
if there are links to, you know, those resources that are now 404, then Google's following the links.
Yep.
And, you know, we'll be finding out there isn't a page at the end. But that's not necessarily your crawl budget. Yes, you would have got the spider hitting your page if your page was there, just as it's hit your server to discover that there's a 404. But if you cannot, you know, if that is a 404, you haven't got equivalent content. A, why did you let it 404? You know, why didn't you keep content up? And it must have been because something changed.
Yep.
That was no longer relevant to your business, in which case you're not going to be able to put up a relevant 301 anyway, are you?
No, but I'm trying to educate the client because he's saying, oh, this is dragging down my rankings, and I'm like, no, it's not.
No, it's not dragging down. Now, yes, being able to use link power would push it up. Certainly, you don't want to kill positive old pages, but again, you know, if they don't have the content, there must be some logical reason for them not to have done this unless
if there's a demand for that page, for that product, and so on, and you in it, you're not dragging down the website, you're dragging down the business.
Yeah, good point, Bill. Yeah, okay. I mean, I have said to them, what we should look at is how you know, the pages being in analytics, how much traffic is visiting those sites. I don't think they get links to those external links. I don't think they get external links to those pages, but certainly if there's traffic coming to them, they're losing.
Well, if there's traffic coming to them, there must be links.
Well, internally.
What, you think people are making up URLs to type in?
No.
Internal.
Yeah.
Well, that definitely shouldn't be there. No,
okay.
You should have no links on a site that point to a 404.
No, yeah.
At the very least, regularly check your site with a crawler of your own to look for 404s. Certainly something, you know, there's several paid crawlers out there. I still like the Xenu Link Sleuth. That's XENU '*S Link Sleuth. Free tool that will spider pretty much any size site, although, you know, when you've got a 100,000 page site, it can take it 10.5 hours to run.
Okay.
But it draws up a full sitemap. It shows you the titles. It points out 301s, 302s. It has all your images. It checks everything for you. Very worthwhile tool. I run it over every new client to get a real idea very quickly of the scale of the site and any issues they've got. Highly recommend it. There should be no internal 404s, period.
No, I sorted those out on a client site over the last week.
Yeah.
But these are a mixture of looking at. I mean, this is just a new client that potentially is coming over to us. So I haven't looked under the hood too much. I've just given him an overview. One of the ones that someone suggested and I've suggested to him was 410s, 410s.
If you know that the content is gone, it's deliberately gone.
Yeah.
See, 404 can happen when your server can't find the page.
Yeah.
Whereas 410 says, you're not going to find this, I chose to get rid of it. So it can be dropped from Google a little faster. Now, it's been said in the past, I think it was John Mueller actually, on one of the Google Webmaster Hangouts. A 404, you know, Google will find it, note it, but it won't necessarily remove the result straight away. It'll kind of keep it in the back end of the database. It may not show up in search for a while, but it's still in the index kind of thing. I've had other people say that, do you know what, I've got 404s on my site that Google's hitting, that I have looked for links for, they've been gone for 5 years, and the spider still hits them every now and again. And do you know what, Google's built to do that. It's not built to forget that it discovered URLs, and it will kind of keep some of them around for a long time. It often means there's a link you haven't found somewhere, external, whatever. And sometimes that's it can be on a no index page, so the page won't show up, but it had no index but follow.
Yeah.
Those can be a tricky job to find. Do you know what? The 404 is not going to hurt you. Internal
That's what I've said to the client, but he's got himself in a panic because he keeps seeing them increase, and he's not. He says he's not ranking for the phrases that he wants, which is to do with London. But when I look at the page, I mean, I'm not a fan of exact match keyword phrases, but there isn't even one. But there's like hidden things in the site, images with 1 pixel by 1 pixel with the out tag, and I found that 5 times.
Ouch! Yeah.
So I said to him, remove it, and the devs, because I can't remove it, I can only report on what I'm finding, and he needs to get the devs to sort it.
Yeah. Has he lost rankings? Is this somebody who used to have rankings and has lost them? Because that kind of thing can get you penalties.
Okay.
So find out if he's lost traffic. If he has, he may need to check for penalties and see if there's been something going on there. Certainly, yeah, get rid of those. 1 pixel by 1 pixel with alt text it's a huge warning sign.
Yeah.
Years ago, I mean, Alta Vista had a patent where if an image was specified at a size and that size was quite small, it shouldn't have alt text.
Yeah, makes sense, doesn't it?
I think the limit I remember was something like if it was less than 20 pixels by 20 pixels, they would not use it for a start. But if it had significant alt text on a small image like that, that was a sign that somebody was playing games. And not only should you not count that image positively, you should negatively impact the site on it. Sometimes spammers really don't think at all that search engine engineers have any sense.
Yeah.
You do need, as an SEO, to think like you own the search engine. You've seen the spam. What would you do about it? Because you know what? Google employs hundreds of people, and that is their job. They do spend all day thinking about, right, I've seen this. What would I do about it? Now, Google's approach is usually to build it into the algorithms, their anti-spam measures, rather than do hand penalties. They do, of course, do them every now and again. But those are always a warning. Once those hand penalties start coming out, it's a sign that they are working on this. This is the warning shot across the bows. Get rid of it fast, because there is going to be something algorithmic. They will look at this and say, right, this needs fixing.
Okay, and then with their updates to their algorithm, I keep hearing that they're going to go real time. Is that?
A lot of people are saying Penguin is going to be built in.
Rather than run a refresh and then you get banned and then you sit there until the next refresh.
Right. The phrase real time is possibly misleading because it might cause people to think that it's something that happens immediately, quickly, in real time, as opposed to something that they just not a batch operation. They don't pull data offline and then put it back online.
It's another one that's very Boolean thinking, isn't it, Bill? Because often what they'll do is you get something that is built in a static way that's kind of like a blacklist, but things are checked against that blacklist in real time. And I would certainly estimate that Penguin is likely one of those where an index is built of offensive things that can be easily recognized, and then that is kept and it is run constantly in that form. When you get an update, it means they've changed some of the things that it will automatically recognize, not that it wasn't actually looking for them at the time. It doesn't mean they applied a penalty and it will only expire when this gets updated, it means this thing will continue to be penalised in this way until they change the rules on how it will be penalised. But it is real time.
Okay. So when you see results fluctuate, and we do see this, you know, I've got clients, they're in the top 3, but you know, they get to number 1, they're there for 8 weeks, and then they drop 2 spaces to number 3, and we haven't touched the page, it's a sub-page, it's not spam or anything else, it's relevant, time on site's good, blah, blah, blah. And then they say, oh, we're not building links to the page, and I've said it's got nothing to do with it, it's just, but again, the answer is I don't know what Google's up to on that score, why it hasn't dropped off the first page, it's just moved down 2 spaces, and a week later it moves back up. And all I can say is it Google testing their system?
Google's constantly refining, as we know, and we've had figures on how many experiments they run on the live SERPs per year, and it's over 500. So on any given day, there are at least 2 running.
Okay.
And whether you're hitting the A or B results, and you know, for each of those, it is going to change it. Paul Hart. And
then obviously personalisation kicks in on top.
Paul Hart, in his presentation at SMX, I think it was, said that you are now more likely, most of the time, you will be hitting experimental results rather than static results. Most searches. More than 50%, because there's so many A/B tests going on at any one time. Now, some of these are very small things. You know, there's 1 pixel spacing in a different place on the SERP page. There's a different shade of blue on the link. They ran tests over that and tested hundreds of different shades of blue over periods, and you know, very, very tiny variations that nobody was really reporting on. But there are also constant updates to certain algorithms. You know, the search engineers are not paid to sit there and think up an idea every now and again. They are working all the time. They're full-time workers. So the things are always in flux. Now, if your signals are strong enough, then just changing 1 or 2 factors shouldn't change that. You know, if I clearly have we know there's 200 ranking factors. Even if they play with 1, as long as I'm good in 199 others, it shouldn't change my position too much. And this is why they won't be falling off the first page. But you also do need to realise that, you know, that flux changing position is going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I've told them that. I mean, one of the things we kicked back was that the person who's writing the blog has suddenly become this experienced SEO, and I've known for years is a con, basically, is basically cannibalizing the keyword phrases that we target on the main pages back into the blog pages, which we've got the client in first position, and the blog pages that are not relevant show up in second and third, and we go, well, that's got to have an effect on what we're doing. So there's a big row brewing up on Friday for us to say, well, look at the traffic to our blog posts when we've written them compared to his, and look at the fact that he's targeting the same keyword phrases that we're targeting on the main pages. Yeah. So that's the only factor that I went back to the client and said, this is what's dragging you down, and he's kicked up a right fuss and said it makes no difference to the pagination. And I said, but the site does no pagination. So he's throwing around big words he has no ideas about. So yeah.
Exactly that. And of course the internal link structure. If a site is constantly updating, you've got a blog and you know you've got a news part, all that. Well, again, you are changing that site's layout, the way PageRank flows around it, the strength of one piece of content over another. You know, your site is in flux. Of course, the results will be in flux. You know, if you want a static position, have a static site. Or relatively static.
Yeah.
It is one reason for with a lot of sites having the blog slightly off to the side. You know, whether it's in a subdirectory or in a subdomain, sometimes that can give more stability to the main site. But
having it in a subfolder?
Yes, that still depends on how many links you get into the main domain. If most links are coming to the blog and the blog is constantly updating, then of course there's going to be more fluctuation.
No, the content being provided in the blog, other than what we've provided, is thin content, and I can guarantee there is no links coming in to that.
Right. Well, that again can influence.
This is something that I intend to show to the client, that the work that we've done for the last, again, it's a client's been with us for 10 years. The work that we've done is being upset by someone who doesn't know what they're doing, and spamming the hell out of the blog pages for the same phrases that we wrap naturally into the content on the main pages, is having a negative effect. So
be careful, because clients often don't understand SEO. They've got one person they trust telling them one thing and one person they trust telling them another, and they're going to look at vested interest and, oh, surprise, surprise, you're each saying you're doing right and the other one's doing wrong, and they're not going to move. Sometimes that is exactly this is where I get some of my work for other SEO agencies from, is I'm called in as a third party who's neutral, because people don't have to know me that long to know I'm not going to bullshit it.
Well, yeah.
I will find whatever is at fault, not to poke fun at them, but so they can fix it.
Yeah, but no, his blog his blogging efforts are pretty poor, and a member of my team has looked after that account now for 2 years. I had it for 8 before that, and she's done a very good job, and obviously she's proud of what she's done. But he's querying why the reduction in rankings on keyword phrases he's stuffing into his blog posts.
Right. Well, what I would suggest, and I mean, you can always then say that you ran this past somebody else, and what they suggested as a test is this: count the number of blog posts over the past 6 months and the number of inbound links gained to those posts in the last 6 months, and if the number of posts is higher than the number of links, he's draining PageRank.
Yeah,
because you're having to link to those pages, but nobody else is.
Yeah, from within. Yeah,
you're weakening your internal link structure away from key content by having to link to these other things and spreading the spider around pages that are not delivering any extra value in.
Yeah.
Literally, it's what we call dilution of content.
Okay. But most SEOs don't realise that, do they?
I would say, that is the measure. Look at the number of links over 6 months and the number of pages over 6 months on that blog, and suggest that going forward, every 3 months, at quarterly, you have a cull. Any page that hasn't picked up one link after 3 months is killed.
Yeah. Now,
sometimes we used to sort of stick them in an archive that can't be crawled, but honestly, also just get rid of them.
Yeah, because my SEO suggested we block his blog pages with robots.txt or no index, no file. I said, no, that's too easy. I said, just do it in HT access, because he can't get FTP access to the server, and that'll clear them out. But that's sort of going behind the client. Unfortunately, he has the clients here. We do, even though they're longer. He's much better at bullshitting his way through rather than actually knowing what he's talking about.
Which is why I say a physical test that's got simple maths that anybody can understand is going to be the way forward on this.
Yeah.
Because none of you know what the results are going to be.
No.
But if he starts making excuses even before you've run the test, that's already going to tell the client all they need to know.
Yeah, good point. Okay.
Bill? Now that you've finished playing yo-yo, Bill, for a while I thought I was watching a fruit machine there with your icon going round and round. Good to have you back. You got anything to add to that?
No, Google Hangouts have been really troublesome for me the last few weeks.
Unfortunately, they do a lot of updates to Chrome, and of course, when you're using the Chrome browser, it does it. You have to restart Chrome and sometimes reboot if there's been an update that you haven't picked up before the Hangout. The number of people who don't come on G+ regularly and then come on for a Hangout, and of course, it's not going to let them connect up for anything. because they need to update some of the protocols. Oh, it can be a right pain.
That doesn't happen with Firefox then. I'm a big Firefox user. I've always liked Firefox for years. I know some people don't, but that doesn't happen with Firefox, in your opinion.
Well, it's going to, because the next version of Firefox is basically Chrome.
Firefox has problems too.
Okay, and I didn't know that, Ammon.
Yeah, Firefox has moved away from the Mozilla basis and starting to use Chrome.
Right, that's publicly out there, is it? Because I didn't know that. Oh, okay, I need to go look then. Okay, and then we talk about generating links into sites. And I've been using Raven Backlink, which drags out Majestic, Moz's Backlink Explorer, SEM rushes, and maybe because I'm living in the small business world, but I see so much in the way of dross link building, and yet people seem to get by on it. We don't do it.
Link building is still links are still a huge part of Google's algorithm. That's going to continue.
Okay.
People don't understand the way that Google filters them. Now, I've got no evidence for this. This is purely speculation, purely my own experience. But my feeling is that Google is ignoring anything up to 95% of all links out there. That do you know in basic filtering and things like that, you've got false positives and positive positives and sometimes positive negatives. Well, I think Google basically adjusted the threshold. The threshold on whether you can know this link is safe is higher than it used to be before it will be counted. I.e., if you've got any doubt about the link, ignore it. Google's got enough links around the web to work with that it doesn't need to worry about all of them. One thing I've seen particularly, things like Twitter and many of the social media accounts, those links seem to be used extensively for discovery, but I'm not seeing them passing any PageRank. I'm not seeing things with 1,000 tweets that don't also get links do very well at all.
Okay.
It's very hard to separate the two because most things that do get a lot of tweets will also get a lot of links on blogs and things like that. There's a lot of people, of course, who are, they've got recent tweets on their site, so it is served as a link on a site as well. That tweet itself gets repeated on a site. So it can be very difficult to separate out, but I've certainly seen it, and if anybody does the research hard enough, they will find it too.
Okay, because I watched a video company who did their own SEO, in Bristol, and I kept an eye on him over about 3 or 4 months, maybe a bit longer, and maybe it's just because it's not that competitive, I guess, in Bristol, but he ranked for phrases and was just building they weren't junk links, but they were poor links, if you could see what I mean. It was all directory listings. And I've heard other SEOs, you shouldn't use directory listings, and I use a smattering of them because I use those, like real world links and whatever, and people mentioning people in blogs that because there's a validation of that, because I introduced business owners that I think could benefit from partnering up with not links but marketing efforts and blog content, which obviously generates links themselves, not by the bucket load but enough to send traffic through. But this guy's did hit top 5 in the local area and he didn't build a single decent link. And he
probably did. He probably built 1 or 2 good links, and the thing is,
right,
that does make the difference. You'd be amazed because so many people have bad links or questionable links.
Yeah.
And like I say, if it's got question, the thing I've got against, I love Majestic as a tool for finding links and all the rest of it. Brilliant, love it. I even like TrustFlow for interest and for what I think it's going to tell me about crawl priorities because I can't get PageRank anymore.
Yeah.
The domain authority, page authority, any of those metrics are complete bullshit when it comes to what the link is worth. Because there are entire sites out there whose links are worth 0 despite having a high domain authority. because their links have been questionable in the past, because they have had sneaky sponsored links and openly sponsored links and things like that. Google doesn't have the trust in those links, so it's not passing the full page rank, any of the links on the site. Sometimes it's only within a certain section. Certainly anyone that's got a user-generated content section, question whether those links are really going to be important anymore. There's a lot of this, you know, I would honestly say 95% of links don't count for much. They will get spidered, they will be used for discovery of a page, but they will not help its ranking.
Okay.
But that still leaves 5% that do, and obviously, you know, if you're building 100 links, the chances are you're going to be building the wrong 100, and none of them will count because you're applying a certain bias, probably chasing after the high domain authority for the people that have got high domain authority but can be gamed for links. Well, that automatically puts them in the distrusted pile.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree. I've got a client onto the first page of Google. They've been I don't know whether they've been penalised, because if you put their brand name in, they came up. This is 2 years ago, but they'd probably had 2,500, 3,000 links coming in from Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Philippines, and I said, "Do you trade over there?" "No." "Do you have offices over there?" "No." So there's no bearing for you to have those links when your own website says you trade only in Europe. And I didn't know if I was being too advanced with Google, thinking could they spot that. But I did say, so they said, well, we've been told we've got to clean up all our links and everything else. I said, well, your domain name is something not to be desired. It was about 8 keyword phrases long. So I shortened it down to the 2, the brand and the product, .co.uk. Worked on the on-page SEO, cleaned up some duplicated content, and then built 6 links to the site over probably 8 weeks, and they gradually moved up and rank on the first page. But I still think, I'm still wondering, was it just one link, or is it the combination of all 6, or is it the combination of all 6 and my on page? And
you'd have to look at the quality of the links and guess that. You know, Google don't give you any tool to know.
No,
they don't want you to know. They don't want people gaming it. They're doing a pretty good job, because a lot of people are chasing the domain authority and the page authority and you know, the Moz metrics and Majestic metrics as if they counted. Well, that's just... Do you remember when people used to worry about the toolbar page rank? Well, these are third-party toolbar page rank.
Yeah, guesstimates. So
not only is this pixie dust, but it's not even pixie dust from the company that counts. It's somebody. It's a guideline. It's an idea. But if you think that every link is worth what the domain authority says it should be, what country are you in? What world are you living in? Because you haven't kept up with anything happening in SEO for 10 years. There are lots of ways of looking at the trust factors. There's been a lot of patents about trust and authority, and you know, these things do count significantly. And if you've ever had paid links, you've ever had spurious guest post links, you've had things like that, those can still sometimes be hurting you years later, because you just haven't earned the trust back.
So in terms of paid guest blogs, I know Google hit some bloggers recently, didn't they? Or they sent out notices to people that are outbound linking. Is it product reviews?
Yeah.
But
basically where people have got an undisclosed financial incentive.
Okay.
Disclaimers and testimonials. Receiving money, receiving gifts, special treatment in exchange for providing links.
Yeah, any of those things are going to be. And that's why Google is penalising at the moment, and it's one of those ones that comes back to what we were saying earlier. If Google are doing this by hand now, that means somebody has been tasked with, look, this is expensive, we're having to put people on this. Find a way of putting it in the algorithm. I will guarantee you there is an algorithm being worked on to do exactly the same thing permanently.
Yeah.
Of course there is. That's what Google does.
Right. The Reasonable Surfer patent was updated a few weeks ago. Yeah, the way it was updated said something like the amount of page rank that passes the probability that someone might reasonably follow that link to a site or to the page it points at. So if it's a service link, chances are most people aren't going to click, so that link doesn't pass any page rank.
Yeah. And I think where we will see that having effect is, you know, a lot of sites, whenever they mention a company, you've got the link to its stock report. How many people honestly ever click that? On most of the sites it's on, you know, you're not a stockbroker, you don't care. I'm not going to buy shares in this because they've just unveiled a new car. A few people might, but I don't think most people might. And of course, that's the kind of thing where that is what they want to discount. If it's not a link that a reasonable surfer would be using,
yeah,
it's not a valuable link.
When Google made the announcement regarding Alphabet, and they, within that blog post, announced, linked to a page regarding Alphabet with just so it was unlikely that anyone would ever period to get to the Alphabet website. The probability of that passing any page rank whatsoever was 0. Because no one was going to click on that period to get to that page.
Yeah. We are over the hour, so I'm going to take us offline. If anyone watching wants to jump into the green room, the link is already in the comments. Thanks everyone for jumping in. We will no doubt carry on talking in the green room. Take care, everyone.